The happiest day of my life turned into my worst nightmare in less than 10 seconds. Just as my husband and I stood smiling beside our wedding cake, my mother ripped the microphone out of the DJ's hands and shouted, "My daughter scammed this man into marrying her." Every guest froze. My husband looked at me in shock, and I realized my own mother had been waiting for this moment all along. My name is Sophie. I'm 32 years old, and if you had asked me the morning of my wedding what could possibly go wrong, I would have said nothing. I had spent years surviving my mother's cruelty. I honestly believed she would behave for just one day. I was wrong. Growing up, I was never enough for my mother. If I earned an A, she'd ask why it wasn't an A+. If I lost 5 pounds, she'd point out I still had 10 more to lose. If someone complimented me, she'd smile politely and later whisper, "They're only being nice." My younger brother, Adam, could do no wrong. He dropped out of college twice. Mom called him misunderstood. I graduated with honors. She called me lucky. Dad rarely argued with her. Instead, he stayed quiet. That silence hurt almost as much as her words. When I met my fiancé, Ethan, life finally began changing. He didn't care about appearances. He loved how I laughed too loudly at terrible jokes. He remembered little things, like how I always ordered hot chocolate with extra cinnamon. Most importantly, he saw value in me long before I learned to see it myself. When he proposed, I cried so hard I couldn't even answer. He laughed. "I'm going to assume that's a yes." It absolutely was. The only person who didn't celebrate was my mother. The first thing she asked wasn't whether I was happy. It was, "So, how much does he make?" I rolled my eyes. "Mom." "What?" "It's a fair question." "No. It's not." From that day forward, she constantly hinted that Ethan deserved someone from a better family. At first, I ignored her. Then things became stranger. My florist called asking why I'd canceled the flower order. I hadn't. The caterer called asking why I'd reduced the guest list. Again. I hadn't. Someone had been pretending to be me. Thankfully, every vendor confirmed changes before processing them. I changed all my passwords and assumed the problem was solved. I had no idea who was behind it. The wedding day arrived. Everything looked perfect. The ceremony was beautiful. Ethan couldn't stop smiling. When we exchanged vows, he whispered, "I've never been more certain about anything." I whispered back, "Neither have I." For the first time in my life, I felt completely safe. Then came the reception. People laughed. Children danced. My father actually smiled. I started believing we'd made it through without drama. Then Mom stood. She walked toward the DJ. Before anyone realized what she was doing, she grabbed the microphone. The room fell silent. She looked directly at Ethan. "I can't let my new son-in-law ruin his life." My heart stopped. My daughter scammed this man into marrying her. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Mom continued. She lied about money. She lied about debt. She manipulated him because she knew he'd never marry her if he knew the truth. I couldn't breathe. Guests stared at me. Some looked confused. Others looked horrified. My knees almost gave out. Mom reached into her purse. I even brought proof. She waved several printed bank statements. My entire body went numb. How had she gotten my financial records? Before I could speak, Ethan gently squeezed my hand. He looked at my mother. "Are you finished?" She blinked. "No." He calmly took the microphone. "I've actually been waiting for this." Everyone looked confused, including me. He smiled softly. "I know everything about Sophie's finances." I turned toward him in complete shock. "What?" He looked at me. "We've shared every account, every debt, and every financial plan for over a year. Then he faced my mother. So whatever papers you're holding, they're either stolen or fake. Mom's confidence faltered for the first time. She insisted. They're real. Ethan quietly nodded toward someone near the back of the room. His cousin Daniel stood. Daniel happened to be a cybercrime detective. He calmly walked onto the stage. I'd like to ask one question. He looked directly at my mother. How exactly did you obtain confidential banking information? The ballroom became silent. Mom couldn't answer. Daniel continued. Because if these documents are genuine. He paused. You've admitted to multiple crimes in front of 200 witnesses. The color drained from her face. She lowered the papers. But the nightmare wasn't over. She suddenly pointed at me. Fine. They're fake. But she's still hiding something. I stared at her. What? You've been sending money to someone every month. I froze. Ethan looked at me. Confused. For one horrible second. I thought she'd actually found something. Because she had. There was one secret I'd kept. Not because I was ashamed. Because it wasn't mine to tell. I slowly took the microphone. She's right. The room became completely silent. I had been sending money every month. Mom smiled triumphantly. I knew it. Then I continued. For 11 years. People looked confused. I've been paying for my father's medical treatments. Dad's head snapped toward me. Mom frowned. What? I looked directly at my father. You remember when your insurance stopped covering your medication? He nodded slowly. I told you an anonymous charity stepped in. His eyes widened. It wasn't a charity. It was me. The room fell silent. Dad's hand started shaking. I couldn't let you stop treatment. Mom looked completely stunned. You. I nodded. I used part of every paycheck. Every bonus. Every tax refund. Dad burst into tears. You told me. I knew you'd refuse if you found out. Then another voice interrupted. It was Ethan. He smiled through tears. That's actually how I knew I wanted to marry her. Everyone turned toward him. The first time I asked why she never bought expensive things. He looked at me. She simply said someone needed the money more. He squeezed my hand. I eventually learned the truth. He looked at the guests. She spent over $100,000 saving her father's life. My mother looked as though she'd been struck. People started whispering. Then my maid of honor quietly walked to the stage. She connected her phone to the projector. I stared at her. What are you doing? She smiled. Something I've waited years to do. Security camera footage appeared on the giant screen. Wedding vendors. Phone calls. Office visits. One familiar face. My mother. She'd personally visited the florist pretending to be me. She'd canceled decorations. Tried changing the menu. Even attempted to cancel the wedding venue. Every meeting had been recorded. The ballroom erupted. Guests couldn't believe what they were seeing. Mom looked around desperately. This isn't. Nobody believed her anymore. Then came the biggest twist. Dad slowly stood. For the first time in my entire life. He didn't stay silent. He looked directly at Mom. I knew. Everyone turned toward him. My heart broke. You knew? He nodded. I found out 3 weeks ago. He lowered his head. I was afraid if I confronted her. He looked around the room. She'd ruin your wedding. Tears rolled down my face. So you said nothing? He whispered. I was wrong. Then something nobody expected happened. Dad removed his wedding ring. placed it on the table, and quietly said, "I'm done protecting lies." Mom started crying. He didn't look back. The reception continued. Without her, guests slowly returned to dancing. Laughter came back. Not because everyone forgot what happened, but because they refused to let one bitter person destroy our happiness. Months later, the truth spread through the family. Relatives who had believed Mom for years finally understood why I'd kept my distance. Dad filed for divorce. He later admitted he'd spent decades confusing peace with silence. I thought avoiding conflict protected the family. He told me one afternoon. It only protected the person causing it. Today, Ethan and I are expecting our first child. Dad visits every Sunday. He's learning what it means to be present. Really present. As for my mother, she still insists she was trying to save Ethan. But nobody listens anymore. The people who mattered saw the truth with their own eyes. Sometimes I think back to the moment she grabbed that microphone. For years, I believed my mother held all the power in our relationship. I thought she could destroy any happy moment she wanted. I was wrong. Because the day she stood in front of 200 people and accused me of scamming the man I loved, she accidentally exposed the only fraud in the room. And it wasn't the bride. It was the woman who had spent my entire life pretending to be a loving mother while secretly trying to steal every joyful moment she couldn't control.